All right, awesome. I think we are live and ready to rock and roll. So hello everyone, welcome to week 1 of our Fearless Immunity Masterclass. And so this is one of the first times that we've ever done webinars in the form of episodes. And the reason we kind of decided to break this up in 6 weeks of classes is one, because it's a lot of information, but I think the difference between a webinar and a masterclass is that I actually want to give you action steps and things that you can be implementing every single week for you and your family. So we are really excited about that. So as we get started today, just to intro myself, I am Dr. Alicia Bloom with Marble City Family Chiropractic. This is
Dr. Nico.
Dr. Nico, and we are here to kind of do our intro class today. And our biggest focus over the next 6 weeks is really kind of changing our mindset towards our health in regards to how we can be more proactive instead of reactive, and especially with kind of what's gone on in the last 8 months, not only in our country but in the world. Unfortunately, we've taken a really reactive approach to something, and I want to completely flip-flop how we're looking at this. So heaven forbid anything like this ever happen again. We are approaching it with a positive and strong mindset, but also immune system and action steps for you and your family. So we're going to kind of anchor into strengthening the host for the environment, not allowing the environment to control the host, right? And so this is stuff that honestly, me, Dr. Jason, our staff, even patients in our office, this is stuff that we do all year long. And this is where it really gets into the importance of not just focusing on taking care of your health or trying to boost your immune system during flu season or during the cough and cold season, but what are you doing all year long to make sure that your body is healing and functioning as properly as it possibly can. And so that's the kind of stuff that we're going to really break down over the next couple weeks. And so as we transition into kind of the why behind all of this, our purpose, not only as chiropractors, but max living doctors, is we focus on what we call the 5 essentials to health. And that's going to be some of the breakdown of today of what are these 5 essentials? How do they actually anchor us in focusing on true health care and not sick care? And this is one of the biggest things that I really want you guys to walk away from this series, understanding that this is very empowering, and that your health is your own responsibility, and you have so much more control and power over it than what we think. And so it's hard because we've almost been taught or trained that ever since we're a kid, whenever we get sick, we go to mom, we go to the doctor, we run some tests, we get a diagnosis, and we've almost been trained that health comes from the outside in, that it comes from a pill, a potion, or a lotion, instead of our body. We were innately born to function and to be able to handle viruses and bacteria and to thrive in any sort of environment. And so that's the kind of stuff that we're going to start breaking down, how we're approaching some of these things. And, whenever we look at our standard of healthcare, obviously we take a more holistic approach. We're looking for natural healthcare because I want you to be able to live to your full potential without having to modify or get sick or be worried about comorbidities and multiple things that, happen when we basically lose our health. And so whenever we're looking at health in general, we want to get to the cause of the problem, not just chronically put Band-Aids over the symptoms. And so we want to make sure that we are aiding our immune system to function at 100%. And the hardest part is, looking at our health in general as, sometimes a symptom, it's not always a bad thing. It's like the check engine light coming on in your car. And so what if we started looking at things like a fever as a really good thing instead of a bad thing? How amazing is it that your body's going to heat up its core temperature to kill off any sort of bacteria or virus that you have going on? And so looking at some of these things and completely changing how we're approaching this is what we want to move forward with. And I think some of the things that, I really personally, and I know Dr. Jason shares this and Dr. Nico shares these thoughts as well, is that I get really passionate about this. I get really excited about this because I think a lot of people forget how much control that they have over their health. But it's very frustrating because I watch not only our community, but our country use the if it ain't broke, don't fix it healthcare model. And so we wait until our health gets so bad or we've had some sort of chronic long-term diagnosis before we start doing anything about it. And so what's happening is we've gotten into this system now where we are using a crisis care model that's supposed to be for long-term fixes, but we're using it for short-term problems. And so Oh, I'm sorry. Flip-flop that. So sorry. I was like, wait, that didn't make sense. We are using a crisis model, which is supposed to help us get out of crisis mode. If you get in a car accident and you sever your arm, your blood pressure shoots up to over 300, anything like that. That's a short-term crisis problem. And that's why we have medicine. That's why we have all of this stuff to fix it. But the problem is we're using that same correction for a long-term chronic health condition. And this is one of those things that, I tell patients all the time, like if you get diagnosed with high blood pressure, it was probably because you and your doctor felt that in the moment, the medication was the exact thing that was needed. And that's why there is a time and a place for medicine. Don't forget that. But the problem is when you get that diagnosis and you get put on that medication, how long are you going to be on that medication for? Unfortunately, most of the time they say for the rest of your life. And so my goal is I want to completely transition this to where like your body, it's not deficient in high blood pressure medication, right? That's not why your blood pressure shot up. You aren't deficient in Advil or ibuprofen either. And so the whole catch of it is we need to start figuring out, well, why did that happen in the first place? And then let's get to the cause of the problem. Is there an underlying inflammatory response? Are there other things going on that's making your body have to work so hard that the only way to survive is for your blood pressure to go up? And so why aren't we focusing on those things? And that's the kind of stuff that we really want to break down over the next couple of weeks of how can we make sure that you are taking control of your health, talking and having open communication with your doctors, with your practitioners about, I want to get my body healing and functioning like it was created to do, right? So if you've been on a medication for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, have an open conversation with your doctor about you are willing to put in the work and the steps to get off of that medication. Tell people all the time, if your doctor is every single time you go, just honestly writing you a prescription and giving you one more thing and one more thing and one more thing, that's a problem. Your doctor should be getting you off of medications. And unfortunately, in the United States, the average person is on 12 medications. And so the interesting part of it is like, I look at myself, well, I'm on 0. I look at my husband, he's on 0. I look at Dr. Nico, he's not on any. So that means somebody else is taking all of ours. And so that's a problem. And we have patients that come in and, when they write out all the medications that they're taking and what's been going on, it is not crazy to see people on 12, 15, 20 different medications at a time. And it's one of those things that we need to start realizing, like, is that health or is that disease? And that's what we're going to break down today.
So if we take a look at the stats that represent the state of health in the US, we can see that the health is rapidly declining. We could think that we have one of the best health systems in the US because of how expensive everything is and the fact that we're bringing medical doctors from everywhere in the world. But in reality, we're pretty much getting sicker and sicker, and this trend is only increasing. So more than 70% of adults in the US are overweight or obese. 6 out of 10 adults have chronic disease. The number one cause of death in the US is heart disease. Half of the population is have been using a prescription medication in the past 30 days, and over 100 million adults in the US have diabetes or pre-diabetes. What's scary is that the US represents only 5% of the world population, but it's also taking 70% of the world drugs.
And I want you to sit on that stat for a second. Like, we are 5% of the world's population, but consume over 70% of the world's medications. That's crazy. And then right now, you think of all of the things that we have done in the last 8 months to help, change the environment, protect people from a virus that unfortunately affects people with multiple comorbidities, right? And so when you look at these stats, that's pretty much half of America has multiple comorbidities. And so it's one of those things, obviously, we want to move past this virus. We want to save as many lives as possible and make sure that we're taking care of people. But at some point, we have to take a step back and realize that I hope that the thing that people really take away from all of this is that the underlying problem to this is that we have so many Americans with high blood pressure, diabetes, overweight, and all these complicating factors to COVID-19, that's where the real problem is. And so I really hope that when, we move past this and we look back, that's the takeaway, that people are really like, I have got to put my health first, because if this ever happens again, I don't want to be the person that's more susceptible to it.
And all these comorbidities, obesity, chronic disease, diabetes, all of that is really preventable through lifestyle changes. So what exactly is the problem? The problem is that we're following more of a disease model instead of a health model. Disease is the lack of health, and health is the natural state or the return to normalcy. So let's take a closer look to the difference between the two. The disease model is not focusing on healthy lifestyle or prevention at all. It's pretty much looking at masking the symptoms of the disease through medication. And one of the problems with that system is that we are always looking for a quick fix. So we have aches and pains, we take some Advil or some painkillers, and we just like move on with our lives
instead of reactive.
Instead of looking at fixing the underlying problems. The other problem with this model is that it's extremely expensive. Let's take a look at these numbers. Chemotherapy between $1,000 to $12,000 a month.
And that's per person.
Per person.
Like this is the average per person that we are spending on sick care here in the United States.
Yeah, average cost of medication, $1,200. Average cost of heart surgery, $324,000. Average yearly cost of diabetes, $9,600.
I can do a whole lot of things with an extra $9,600 in my pocket.
Yeah, for sure. Year. And the thing is that did you know that the leading cause of bankruptcy in this country is actually medical debt? And 70% of those people had health insurance. So there is definitely something that is not working there. And oftentimes people are saying that a healthy lifestyle, going to the gym, buying the proper food and products is expensive. But when we look at this number, this disease model is way more expensive.
Way more expensive.
And something that I like to say is that investing on a healthy lifestyle is an investment on yourself and not in hospital bills and pharmaceuticals.
Absolutely. And so that's like one of the things, like when you look at it, what he said is like, we are literally one of the richest countries. We have more access to healthcare, to doctors, to medications, to other stuff, but we are still one of the sickest countries in the entire world.
I think we rank, 35th in the world?
It's really far down there, so it's not good. And these are industrialized nations, but no matter what, like we're one of the richest industrialized nations and one of the absolute sickest. And so this is one of those things where the reason we wanted to use this as kind of the intro to this entire immunity workshop or immunity webinar series is that we have to understand what the real problem is. I can tell you to take vitamin C and do all this stuff all day long, but if you actually don't understand how deep and how big of an impact this is making on not over just our overall health, but also our kids and families. I did our Max Kids workshop, which is terrifying that we have kids on more medications than we have ever seen before, and we have children that have what we used to call like adult conditions, but there are children now on high blood pressure medications, on children that are becoming type 2 diabetics, not type 1, type 2 diabetics, which used to be called adult onset diabetes. And we have to start looking at what is really playing such a major factor into our overall sick care system. And I think a lot of it is how we're approaching it. And so there are absolutely things that we can do to improve our health. And so when we look at health, ideally the health model is looking at things that are the exact opposite of disease. And so this is not just doing something to reverse a disease, it's doing things to be proactive so that you don't ever get the disease. And I know a lot of patients will tell me like, oh, it's hereditary, it was just in my family and that kind of stuff. Well, the worst part is honestly less than 5% of diseases are truly hereditary by nature, right? Or have some sort of genetic component. The other side of it is that unfortunately, most of it is actually passed down through lifestyle from generation to generation. And I made a joke with a patient the other day that I was like, honestly, I don't think, a lot of our type 2 diabetes and our obesity and all that stuff just gets passed down from grandma. I think it's the recipes that grandma was cooking that gets passed down from generation to generation, not exactly the actual genetic component. And we also know there's an entire field of research out called epigenetics, which is what we've now learned that these are things where you could have a genetic disposition to some sort of disease, such as like the BRCA or anything like that. but it's your lifestyle that actually dictates these genes being turned on or turned off. And so when you actually start looking at it from that perspective, there is no way that I would not want to do anything and everything possible to make sure that I am living in this health model that is reducing my risk for turning these bad genes on or making me more susceptible to any sort of disease, right? And so that's what we're going to go through is, what's the answer? And so today we're going to break down what we call the 5 essentials to health. And these to me are just foundational principles to healthy living, right? So this is going to be stuff that we're going to walk through each of these over the next couple weeks. And what exactly does this look like? And then how can these, next slide. Come on, computer. I want to show you guys what the next 6 weeks are. We're going to overcome our fears of viruses and being scared, because that's going to be next week. There we go. All right. So this week, introduction to our 5 essentials. Next week, you've got to tune in. I don't care if you share this on Facebook, you have a watch party, you do something, but we are going to be breaking down understanding viruses versus bacterial infections and what kind of things that you can do every single day in your lifestyle for you and your family to make sure that you guys are anchored and prepared to take on, this upcoming cold season, this upcoming flu season, or anything else that's going on. We're also going to bring in cancer and understand, cancer isn't something that just happens overnight, right? A lot of our chronic health conditions, you didn't just wake up with cancer one morning. And so we're going to talk about how living this proactive preventative lifestyle also reduces your risk for cancer, reduces your risk for diabetes or a lot of these other comorbidities. We're going to understand how your nervous system, your immune system, we're going to kind of nerdy and actually go into your gut and everything as well, and understand how metabolically your body is supposed to function and what things does it need to function. And then we're going to anchor in the nutrition and detoxification, and then how you can incorporate all of this into a lifestyle, right? And so a lot of this starts with just hearing it. And for some people, hearing it for the first time is the hardest thing, because we have been indoctrinated that this is crazy, this is hard, this is difficult. It's just easier to go through a drive-through. It's too hard to meal prep. It's expensive. I have to do this my whole life. Okay? And that's the biggest thing that I want to just talk about is, honestly, plan to prepare or prepare to fail. And this is one of the biggest things I think to take away. And I'm not looking for perfection from people. I'm not perfect. He's not perfect. Dr. Jason's not perfect. But we live our lives by rules, by principles. And these are principles of health. And so one of the things, that I've talked to even kids a lot in our office is every single time you're eating something, you're either eating to live or you're eating to die. And so that's a big one to think about. We should be using food as fuel. And that's what we're going to, as we go into nutrition today, it's what we're going to talk about. But we're not looking for perfection here. I'm not looking for a diet. I don't like diets, because I think as soon as you finish your end date or you meet your goal, you spiral off track and then you restart over again. So this isn't a diet. These are just lifestyle changes. And the biggest thing is it makes you congruent with what you want in your life. And it makes you congruent with how you feel. It's one of those things, like, I don't eat a lot of the stuff that I don't eat, not because it's not tasty. Mm-hmm. It's very tasty. I just don't eat it because it's not congruent, because I know what it's doing on a cellular level inside of my body. But I also don't want to be creating disease processes. I don't want to be putting myself in these jeopardized positions. And for me, it's incongruent with what I teach every single day in the office. And so I just can't do it, for a lot of those reasons. And so, I tell people all the time, and we have a whole workshop on actually understanding chiropractic care. But if this is your first time ever watching anything in our office and you've never really been introduced to chiropractic, the biggest thing I want to talk about is you can eat all the healthy food in the world. You can exercise all that you want. You can do all of these great things. But if your nervous system, which is your body's master control system, is not functioning 100% or near 100%, you're not going to be able to absorb those nutrients and vitamins from all of your healthy food. You're not going to be able to detox appropriately whenever you're exercising. You're not going to get those gains and reach those overall health goals that you're looking for as long as your body has interference. And so what we do as chiropractors is, obviously, we get people out of neck pain, we get people out of back pain, we help with sciatic, we help your body function from a structural aspect, right? Because biomechanically, we want to be able to move, we want to be able to live. But if there's some sort of restrictions happening, your body's not functioning like it needs to, it's in such a state of heightened stress all the time that it's having to work 10 times harder just to do normal things, there is no way that your body is going to be able to heal and function at 100%. And so that's why we check families in our office. That's why we do an initial evaluation with all of our patients where we check posture, we check range of motion. I think it's always ideal to see what you're working with by taking an x-ray. We really focus on curve correction in our office to take the stress off of the spinal cord and restore neurological function to the body. And so this is a big deal. And so if you've never even had this world introduced to you, you know, I do offer, if you've watched this video or anything along those lines or followed any of our social media, we do a friends and family referral program. Will absolutely get you and set you up for your initial consult, evaluation, and x-rays in the office for a discounted price. Please call us. We will make sure that either Jenny or Melissa or Aaron or myself will get you scheduled for an appointment and make sure that we get you and your family taken care of. Because the biggest thing is that it is common to have headaches and feel bad every single day, but it is not normal. And that's the problem, is we have normalized it. And that's the biggest thing that I talk about with people all the time, is we completely base our health on how we feel, right? If I feel bad, I'm going to make a doctor's appointment. I'm going to go figure it out. But guess what? Your health is 100% determined on how well your body is healing and functioning. And like I said, most people that have cancer or high blood pressure or anything like that, they didn't know because they couldn't feel the cancer developing in their body for the last, I mean, most of the time now they say that cancer develops for almost 10 years before it actually shows up on a scan or shows up as some sort of problem. But you might have felt great for the last 10 years, but you did not know that cancer was developing in your body. Most people with heart issues or heart disease, typically the heart attack or some sort of heart problem is the last thing that shows up, but that didn't develop overnight. And so if you are basing your health on how you feel, I can promise you you're missing the boat, because you are not understanding the disease could or is developing in your body right now. If you are not proactively taking care of your immune system and your body on a cellular level all year round, and you only do it from October to February, that's a problem, right? And this is one of those things that we cannot base, you know, our health on how we feel. Our health is 100% determined on how well our body is healing and functioning and recovering. And so we're going to break down the next couple things. I'm going to give you guys just some action steps, some small things to take home with you today. And then we will see you next week. You better tune in, because next week's going to rock your socks off. So the first thing that we're going to hit on real quickly is nutrition. All right. And so, okay, cool. I got this one. All right. So the biggest thing, as we have seen, is we have really traded like convenience in America versus quality. And so I see this all the time. We call it the SAD diet, the standard American diet. And the biggest problem with this is our diet is a major source of interference. Most of us are consuming multiple inflammatory style foods all day, every day. And we know that inflammation is the underlying cause to most disease, right? It's the underlying cause to autoimmune conditions, to cancer, to diabetes, to neurological problems, brain problems. And so inflammation is what makes us sick on a cellular level. And so a lot of these, you know, are bad processed foods, things that come out of a box, things that have preservatives. One of my #1 label reading rules, if you ever do Shop with the Doc or follow my Nutrition 101, is if you can't pronounce it, you probably shouldn't eat it, right? We only want to be consuming foods that we can actually recognize. And I think the hardest part of this is I see a lot of people, you know, as we move into, you know, understanding how do I even know what's healthy, right? Because if you get online, there's a whole lot of diets out there. There's a whole lot of things to follow. And so I think, like I said, I follow rules, right? Or lifestyle choices, not a diet. And so I really focus on, we try to consume foods by nature, not foods by man. And it's kind of interesting because if you think about it, you know, back in the 70s and the 80s, we went to a completely fat-free diet, right? Because fat was bad. And so if fat is bad, we eliminated fat from our diet. We went to margarine. I can't believe it's not butter. Everything was fat-free, fat-free, fat-free. But the craziest thing is your body needs fat. It needs it. It needs the good fat, the healthy fats. The good kind, right? Because it helps promote proper cholesterol levels. Cholesterol cholesterol kicks off our hormone pathways in our body, which helps set our metabolic function, right? It supports brain health. 70% of your brain is made of fat. It needs fat to function. And it's funny because, or I think it's funny because we went from this fat-free diet to now keto, right? Keto is 70% fat. Now we're promoting that people eat fat, and they've traded in this margarine for like fat bombs, and we have bulletproof coffees every single morning with protein and butter and ghee and MCT oil and all this stuff in it. And so it's really hard that if you are not actually doing your research and just living these principles of, I use food as fuel, I try to eat as less possible things out of boxes and out of containers as possible. You know, I grocery shop for fresh foods that are going to nurture my body, and they come from nature and things that I can recognize, right? And so easy things are like your oils, your cooking oils. You know, I usually prefer things like avocado oil, coconut oil, grapeseed oil. These are all things that I recognize as a food. I try to stay away from things like canola oil, which we don't really know where that comes from. It just, you know, heats really hot. We try to stay away from a lot of vegetable oils and corn oils. And so that's kind of just underlying principles when we start looking at that. So your action step from this slide today is start evaluating each meal that you're consuming. How many things on your plate are from a package or from a container, and realize that whenever we're doing that, those also have additives and preservatives in them, and your body has no idea what to do with that stuff. And so it usually stores it as fat, or it stores it as a toxin and a chemical, and that's what we're going to hit in a little bit on. So another big thing on like label reading is whenever you look at the ingredients list, obviously you want the ingredients list to be as short as possible. And we're going to talk about this in our nutrition portion of it, because we're going to break down how Americans eat versus how Europeans eat. And it's going to be very interesting actually seeing the exact same products that are sold in America and the same exact product that is sold in France, but how the difference in the ingredients, right? It's very interesting. So some other rules is, you know, try to eliminate a lot of those processed foods, but there's other things that we're looking at. I am not a big fan of counting calories. I'm a big fan of counting chemicals. And it's one of those things, the calories, you know, you can have a ton of great quality, high quality calories in your diet every single day, but if you are filled with high fructose corn syrup, artificial colors and dyes, caramel coloring, artificial sweeteners like Splendas and Equals, nitrates and nitrites, which actually increase your risk for prostate cancer. Glyphosate is what's the Roundup they spray on our wheat and our corn. Phthalates, which are estrogen and hormone disruptors, or anything that's genetically modified, aka made by man, right, not by nature. Your body doesn't know what to do with these. And so we're becoming full of this toxic overload. And so we want to start switching out a lot of these processed foods for high quality. I'm really big on quality over quantity. And so we will really break that down moving forward. And we focus in on your big ones are going to be your proteins, you know, finding quality source proteins, switching from these bad rancid fats in your diet to good, healthy, quality fats, and understanding carbohydrates for energy, and then your good carbs versus bad carbs, and then just kind of foods that increase your inflammatory response. So I'm really excited. Tune in for that one. I think that's week 4. Now, this is just a basic thing. If you are a person that's really struggling with your diet, we should be getting all of our vitamins, our nutrients, our daily minerals from our diet. Now, that's really difficult for a lot of people. And so we've started supplying a lot of our patients with something called the Daily Essentials Packet. There's one for men and one for women. And so this is just a great option that if you know that you are not up to par on getting a good variety of nutrients, minerals, and vitamins within your daily diet, this is at least going to cover your basics, right? So it's got a multivitamin in it, a vitamin D3, which is great for your immune system, with probiotics in it, which is good for gut health. It's going to have a fish oil, which is a good healthy fat for you. It's going to have a B complex vitamin in there, which your B vitamins are great carrier vitamins to help your body absorb other nutrients. So if you have questions about that, this is a great way to start incorporating things in just to make sure you're covering your bases.
So next week, we're going to be talking about the hot topic of 2020. We're going to be talking about how to strengthen your natural defenses. And we're going to be talking about the germ theory, which is stating that diseases are caused by microorganisms that invade the host and cause illness. The one thing that it's not talking about is the fact that in most cases, the severity of disease is changing according to the host state of health. So that's a very important topic, and we're going to dig deeper into it next week. Next, we're going to be talking about toxins and how we are exposed to it and how they affect our body. They're pretty much everywhere, and it's really hard to avoid them because they are in our water, in the air that we breathe, in all the cosmetic products that we use, and in the food. What we can control, though, is how much we expose ourselves to them, and by choosing the right foods or more natural cleaning products and so on. The
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm the PowerPoint. My bad.
the thing with toxicity is that our body tend to be toxic, but we don't know about it until we start feeling the symptoms. And the reason why is because our cells are just like little buckets. They're absorbing the toxins and they hold them into the body. And the buckets are filling up, but the symptoms may not develop until the buckets is overflowing. This is called the tolerance phase. And the healthier you are, the better the tolerance you have. So as soon as the bucket is overflowing, that's when you start having symptoms like sneezing, wheezing, itching, chronic headaches, chronic fatigues, difficulty focusing, and stuff like that. So this theory really explains how important it is to minimize toxins and practice a regular detox routine.
This is something that I recommend minimally quarterly for most people, just to do some sort of detoxification, whether that be, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do it. We have a detox system in our office. It's a 30-day detox, so it's a gentle detox. It's not 3 days in the bathroom and you can't go to work kind of a detox. It's a gentle detox that's helping your body detox on a cellular level. And it's nice and slow, cleans the liver, cleans the kidneys, everything along those lines. We also there's many other forms of detoxification as well.
Yeah. And another way to detox is through exercising. Sweating is one of the best ways to get rid of all the toxins that you have in the body. And the other thing that exercises does is that it replenishes the oxygen in your body. And actually, did you know that the brain uses 20% of the oxygen that you have in your body? So it's really important. And the best way to replenish it is through exercise.
Absolutely. And I tell people all the time, I don't care how you do it. For some people, it's great for, I mean, they love just going on walks. That's a great way. You get out in nature, you get fresh air. The biggest goal is we want to get to the point to where you are getting a little bit of a heavy breath and your heart rate gets going a little bit, because then we know that we're actually pumping blood to your extremities, which is increasing the oxygen flow, and we're getting oxygen to all of your muscles. And it's one of the things that, you know, I think it's so important in regards to just finding either some sort of time of day. It's great for congruency. It's great for finding the style of exercise that works best for you and for your family, and then finding a time that you can commit to. I am so guilty about the fact of, you know, we run our own business, we're busy, like all that kind of stuff. And my day quite often gets a wrench thrown in it. I had a plan to exercise at noon today, or I went to go do this, or I'll do it when I get home at night. And we all know that that rarely ever works out, because when you get home at 7 o'clock, the last thing you want to do is go work out. And so for me, the most consistent time of the day is the morning, because it's the time that I can control. Even though I hate getting up in the morning, it is the absolute, you know, for most people, it's a great way to make sure that you are being congruent and consistent with that. And for most people, I'm like, just start with like 3 20 to 30 minute forms of exercise every single week. And so during coronavirus, this has actually probably been one of the biggest benefits of this virus, is we've had more time at home. But the entire fitness industry went online, went virtual. So there are so many different styles of workouts, different kinds of things that you can do. Some of them are great just for energy and for your soul and just to get everything going. And then some of them are just phenomenal, very strategic workouts for weight loss, for toning, and for metabolic input. And so when we talk about,
it doesn't have to be an hour. It can be just like short
short intensity
15-20 minutes.
And so that's the last thing as we kind of break out today is, I think the biggest thing that I get from a lot of people is I don't have time, right? I don't have time to go to the gym for an hour, and then the commute there and back, and then I've got to shower and get ready and all this stuff. It becomes a big deal. And so for most people, I don't know if you've ever heard of HIIT training, but it's high intensity interval training. And this is stuff where you can get the same metabolic workout in 12 to 18 minutes as you could by doing an hour of classic cardio. And so this is stuff where even if you don't have equipment, these can be home workouts. You can find them on YouTube. You can find all these different programs, but it's called HIIT, high intensity interval exercise, or Tabata. And you work out really hard for 20 to 30 seconds, and then you take a 20 to 30 second break and you rest and recover. But ideally in about 12 minutes, you are in this fat burning zone. You are in a metabolic heart rate, and you're actually increase your heart rate, increase your oxygen flow. And then even when you're done exercising, your body is still in this metabolic high to where it will continue to burn fat for energy for anywhere up to another, like almost another, I think it's like 16 to 24 hours, which is a really big deal. And so it's one of those things that, you know, most people do find it hard to find an hour for themselves every single day, but you usually can find 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And so 15 minutes is a big deal, even if it's you standing in front of your couch and doing body squats or air punches or quick feet or something like that for 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off while you're watching your favorite TV show.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a form of exercise, and it's going to get your body moving. It's going to get you sweating a little bit, and it's going to help set the tone for all of those other essentials as well.
And you can find some of these workouts through the videos that Erin is posting on the Facebook page.
Oh yeah, Fridays! Every Friday on our Facebook page, Erin posts a workout for you. So Fitness Fridays, so you can work out with Erin. All right, so next week, tune in next Thursday, same time, same place. We're taking live questions throughout this entire thing, so please feel free, share it with your friends, and we want to make sure that you are creating a community around you that understands how to take care of their bodies, how to take care of their health, put their health first. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Have a great weekend.